Hello, and welcome to What's Your Testimony? I am one of the hosts, Sharita Williams, and I have an interesting guest here tonight. We're very excited, Miss Katrina Reese, and she's from Charlotte, North Carolina. Katrina is an author, she's a publisher, she's an artist, she's a life coach, she's an evangelist. Katrina has done it all. Katrina, are you there?
I am. How are you, Sharita?
I'm good.
Thanks so much for having me.
We're glad to have you here on What's Your Testimony. Now, can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Well, I am an original Charlottean. I graduated from Myers Park High School in 1980. I am married. I have 5 wonderful, wonderful grandkids, 4 children. They're all adults. And I'm just on a mission to do what God has called me to do on the earth while he's giving me that opportunity to do that, Sharita.
That is so wonderful. So when did you accept your calling from God?
That was probably around 1992. I've always gone to church. My parents, I actually went to Friendship Missionary Baptist Church on Batesford Road.
Okay.
I grew up in Friendship, Pastor Coleman Carey and then Pastor Jones. And then I got married and God just kind of switched me to another denomination with, actually I've been married twice with my ex-husband. And so during the time that I was going to our church, which was Parkwood CME, okay, I knew God was just calling me more than just my music ministry, because I've been singing all my life. You hear people say that all the time.
Yes,
I really have. I've been singing all my life. And so my pastor at the time, he told me, he said, there's more in you. And you just need to, listen to God and, hear what he's telling you and follow the direction. And of course, I was like, no, I'm not going to be no pastor. I don't want to be no evangelist. I don't want to do any of that. And then God kind of like said, yes, you are. So I did accept my calling, and Pastor Rayfield Metcalf was our pastor at the time, and he saw so many giftings in me, but I didn't see it myself because I was going through a bad marriage at the time, and it was just a lot. It was just a lot on me, and that's when I actually start writing my book, and I also started writing my music at the time because that was an outlet for me. So 1992 was really the time that I accepted Christ. I didn't fight it anymore. I had been going to church all my life and just following what people told me, but not really establishing that relationship until that time.
Right. Now, through this process and writing your book, and we want to know the name of your book as well, but through this process, who was your biggest influence or who was your biggest supporter?
I would say my biggest supporter was my parents. Okay. They have always supported me in whatever I did. I would say also my pastor at the time, Reverend Rayfield Metcalf, and just a host of friends that saw the giftings in me. Because once I divorced and left there, I became a part of an apostolic prophetic ministry, which really catapulted me into knowing who God was and establishing, who I was and myself.
Okay, and through this, I hear you say you got a divorce. What happened in your marriage? If you would like to share, if it's too personal, we won't share.
No, it's not too personal. I literally like to tell people because that lets them know that there is hope. I was in a partly domestic violence. It was more emotional domestic violence, not really physical. Yes. And then there was a lot of adultery. My ex-husband was a minister. At the time, I was walking in the office of an exhorter. And there was just a lot of turmoil. And then when God started moving me, in my gifts, there was a jealousy type thing that began to take place. So I would say that was the downfall of our marriage, the adultery, and just really making me feel like, no, that's not where God was calling you. You're supposed to be doing this as a wife behind me. And God was really pushing me more. And there was a lot of conflict.
So, Katrina, during this time with your husband being a pastor, who could you really reach out to? Because being a first lady, oftentimes with any female, we hide behind the man. So, what or whom could you reach out to that wouldn't, quote unquote, discredit him?
Well, at the time, he was not a pastor. He was actually a local minister. We were part of the CME connection.
Okay.
And so, with that, you sit up under your senior pastor. And my ex-husband was anointed to preach the gospel. There is no question about that. But there were other areas in his life growing up that were not, I would say, dealt with.
Yes.
So at the time, I was able to, I would say, really confide in my pastor. And also, I didn't really confide in my family because there was still some issues where they knew what I was going through. So, when you have family, they kind of course, they want you to be safe and okay, but then they start, not liking that person. And I didn't want
Right.
that to be the case. I wanted them to understand that he needed help. There was also a drug addiction along
Yes.
with that took place as well. So I would say probably my pastor, and I had two really, really good friends that they held up my arms during that time. I still ministered. I still went and sang, and I did what I needed to do to try to not to get in that funk. I did go through a depression during the time, but I just stayed focused in the Word and just kind of journaled, and that's how the book and my music came about.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about your book.
Well, my book is called From the Heart,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a daily devotional book. And what happened every morning, what I would do is I would get in my meditation time with God, and then He would download, just things about what I was going through during the day and how I could make it through. And then what I started doing, I started journaling it, and then I would text it to a few friends of mine. And over a year, Sharita, I collected a year's worth of content.
Wow.
And what I did was a girlfriend said, why don't you start emailing it out to people? So I started emailing, and I gained this really, really big following of people that really wanted to, kind of hear my daily devotional messages. And then a friend of mine who has a book as well, she said, turn it into a daily devotional. And it took me about 18 months to do it. I self-published, and I did it myself. And that's how it came about. And so I have a second edition of all the other stuff that I had that didn't get in the first book, which is coming out in this next edition.
Oh, how exciting. I love to hear a good story. Well, not necessarily a tragedy, because it wasn't a tragedy, but I love to hear when there's hope. We have so many women that are in a domestic violent situation, and we love to let people know that there is hope. And it is so beautiful that you took a bad situation and you turned it into good. You made your enemy your footstool, and not necessarily your husband was your enemy, but the situation was an enemy. And I think that is so beautiful, because that's one thing about the ministry here at What's Your Testimony, and we're part of WYTV7. And on our network, we like to educate, empower anybody and everybody that we come around. And through that education and empowerment, we like to encourage. So it's so wonderful when we get a guest who has a story that has a happy ending. And I also know that you are a life coach, and a life coach comes about, from situation. And what was your passion, or what is your passion behind being a life coach?
Well, I launched my life coaching business in 2016, and it was pretty much just, I'm the type of person that, and I've always felt this even when I was younger, people have always gravitated to me and, to confide and just to share. And so what I do is, I know God has given me the gift of being a listener. Sometimes people just want somebody to listen to them. And then, like I said, being under, Pastor Metcalf, he told me that, the exhorter in me was always the type of person that would uplift and encourage. And so even in a bad situation for myself, when I see someone in that situation, I do the same thing. I try to encourage them and let them know that there is hope and you can make it through, anything with the help of God. But you also have to have people around you that will not only tell you the truth, but also be there regardless of what you're going through. So that was the encouraging part of me that launched me into doing life coaching. So I went back and I got my certification, and I use part of that with my wedding business, where I do premarital coaching for couples as well. So
Okay. Now, how long have you been doing that, the premarital coaching?
I actually just launched my wedding business last year in 2018, and that was on the suggestion of my brother. My brother is a life insurance agent out in California, and he was like, Trina, you got all these gifts. You can sing, you're certified as a life coach, you've got a book, da, 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 da. And he said, why don't you incorporate that all into one ministry? And you can marry people. I never thought, Sharita, that I would marry anyone. I've sung at tons of weddings, but
Yeah.
never thought I would be the one that would be standing up there marrying couples. And I feel like I have something to give and to share with them,
Absolutely.
because being in
Absolutely.
this second marriage, my husband treats me like a queen. He treats me like the woman of God that God intended for me to be treated as. And so that was why I decided to impart into these young couples through my officiant business and through my wedding business.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Now we have so many listeners everywhere, and there may be someone out there who wants to start a business. Can you kind of give some insight on how to start a business, or how you started your business?
Well, I did a lot of research, and that's one thing that I did do. I wanted to make sure, first of all, I prayed about it just to make sure, is this what God wanted me to do? I could have married people, just by request, or, friends, referrals. But God said, no. He said, you have more to give. And so what I did was I did a lot of research. I researched my name. I made sure that I got my business license. I made sure that, all the financial part was in place. I got a account set up so when I get paid, I could, my money would go there. So I did all the things. I set up a business plan. I set goals like that I wanted things to accomplish, during my 3 months, my 6 months, and my yearly plan. So it takes time to, first of all, go ahead and research and find out if there's something that you really want to do. And then if it is, especially if it's your passion,
Right.
then you'll, get the correct tools and resources to make it successful. And that's what I did.
Mm-hmm. Well, that sounds so great. So tell us a little bit about being a singer.
Well, I am a gospel singer. I'm actually a gospel jazz singer. Everybody always tells me that when I sing, I have a little bit of jazz influence. And both my parents were educators. My
Okay.
dad was a principal. My mom was a teacher in the Charlotte Mecklenburg school system. And so we always had music. We always were exposed to all different types of music.
Mm-hmm.
And so that just was something that I always wanted to do. And then I was on the choir at church. And then my choir director, he said, Katrina, he said, have you ever thought about, singing a lead? And I was like, lead? No, I'm a background singer. So I kind of shied away from that for a while and just started singing with various groups around Charlotte. And then in 2004, I went out for a competition called Gimme the Mic Charlotte.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, and I actually won. I was
Wow.
I was the grand prize winner it was through Channel 9 WSOC.
Yes, yes, I'm familiar.
Yeah, so I was the grand prize the first winner in the first season. And so that really, Sharita, kind of catapulted me into more the gospel industry. I've done local, national singing, and international as well.
So how could someone contact you?
I tell people all the time, Google my name
Okay.
because I will come up on Google, trust me, but they can reach me at Katrina reesemin.com. That's my website for my music. And also, they can email me at Katrina Reese Ministries at gmail.com.
Okay. So Katrina, and all of your talents, and I know that God gives us many talents. Some people give one, some people give many. Out of all your talents, which one you think um, blesses you the most?
I would say during the weddings,
Yeah.
because just seeing those couples standing up there and exchanging their vows. And one of the great things that I do, I actually work with the couples to let them write their own vows. It's they like the traditional, they like non-traditional, but I like to make it special. And so that's what we do during our pre-coaching sessions. We talk about what it is to be married and to be in a life commitment, and that it's a job. It really is. But what did you see in that person that drew you? Not just the physical, you
Right.
know, it has to be more than that. So I would say my wedding officiant job would be the first thing that I love. I love doing it.
So is that how? So how did you meet your second husband?
Actually, I met my second husband. We had known each other 30 years ago.
Wow.
When I was in high school, I used to work downtown after when I got out of school. And we met. He was a college student at CPCC, and we met then. And, we kind of hit it off for a year or two. And then he ended up going back home to Pittsburgh. And, I just went on with life. And we went, our separate ways. And then when I divorced, a friend of mine said that, you know what? I've been having this dream about you getting together with your first love. And I was like, are you serious? And she was like, yeah. She said, where do you think he would be? So guess what we did, Sharita? We Googled on Facebook and we found him.
Oh wow, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Well,
So
it's funny.
we reconnected, and he came to Charlotte because he was living in Atlanta.
Okay.
And then I went to Atlanta, and after that point, he asked me to marry him. He said he'd always been in love with me, and he knew I had married at one time, and he didn't want to, interfere with that. But now that I was divorced, he was coming to, claim me as his own. So we've been married 8 years.
Oh wow, that's a beautiful story. Here at WYTV7, we also have a marriage broadcast ministry, and it's called Marriage of the Kingdom. And we would like for our listeners to tune into that as well. Well, Katrina, it has been a pleasure having you on our show. And if there was one thing, or not necessarily one thing, what inspiration would you like to leave with our listeners today?
Well, I want to say this. I really appreciate you and, you know, your listening audience that's going to listen to this later on. I appreciate the opportunity to be on here to share. Thank you so much, WYTV Channel 7, for allowing me this opportunity as well. I would say that I've got a birthday coming up in a week. I'll be
Happy birthday.
Thank you. I'll be 56. No, 57. I got to get that right.
Okay.
And I would tell anybody that never give up on your dream. You are never too old to do what God has called you to do.
Okay.
And I'm in this season in my life where, you know, I'm not playing catch up, but I'm being obedient to the things that God has called me to do and what he's given me to be a steward over. So I would say never give up on your dream.
Praise God. That is so beautiful, and we just thank you for being a part of our broadcast. And you know, if there's one of our listeners out there that's in a distress or in a situation that need a way out, you know, because again, domestic violence is so prevalent in our country, and we just thank you for sharing. But if there's a listener out there somewhere that needs a way out and don't know where to turn, they can always go to the hotline, domesticviolence.org, and the telephone number there is 1-800-799-7233, and the hotline is 24 hours. You don't have to stay. There is a way out. In every situation, God makes a way of escape.
Yes.
And Katrina is living proof of that. And so many women are living proof of that. And we just like you to thank you for sharing, because so many people won't share. And sometimes your words can be the catapult to someone else's delivery. Mm-hmm. And so we just thank you here at What's Your Testimony. And if there's someone out there who has a story and would like to share, we would like for you to reach out to WYTV7.org and just let us hear your story. It could be a story that can encourage someone. You might not can educate, you might not can empower, but everyone has the ability to encourage. I'm Sharita Williams, one of the hosts of What's Your Testimony, and we would like to thank you for listening in. We would like to thank WYTV7 broadcast and all of our listeners. And we'd like to thank our special guest, Katrina Reese of Charlotte, North Carolina. And we'll be looking forward to your new devotional. And we just like to thank you for coming aboard.
Thank you so much. And also, I've got a new single that's going to be dropping as well on October 4th. It's called We Win.
We Win. All right. And we'll definitely look forward to hearing that. And if anybody out there would like to give a donation to our ministry, they can also give a donation to WYTV7.org. And we are available 24 hours a day. And we would just like to thank you for tuning in to What's Your Testimony.